The Farmhouse. When Andrea was 12 and her youngest sister was 5, she and her family moved into a farmhouse that belonged to a man named Earl Kenyon. After previous visits to the farmhouse, the family decided to buy it and moved in on January the 11th, 1971. Now, once during their visits did they ever experience things that I'm about to tell you. On the day that the family moved in, Andrea and her sisters saw a ghost standing next to Earl Kenyon in the dining room as he was packing the last of his things. This was while they were walking through the dining room in order to get to the kitchen. When they made it to the kitchen, they asked who that man was with Mr. Kenyon in the dining room. This was the first day while moving into the farmhouse. Their family animals wouldn't even step foot into the farmhouse on their own, and the family had forced them inside against their will. After a while of living at the farmhouse, the family figured out that it was haunted and called upon the Warrens for help. After coming to the farmhouse, the Warrens warned them not to use any type of black magic within the house. Andrea's sisters Cindy, Nancy, and their friend Katie decided to sneak a Ouija board in and perform a seance with the board. When they used the Ouija board, the walls went solid white. Crows and blackbirds' shadows appeared and began to circle the room. They would then come together and then split apart until they began to form the shape of a wild animal that none of the girls could identify. The best way they could say it was a mix of a wolf and a lion. The creature began to growl, and it became louder as time went on. The girls began to scream frantically as the floors beneath them started to shake. The shadow creature on the wall began to open its mouth, and the girls could see fangs hanging out. Something was dripping from the fangs too. Finally, the creature faced the girls and roared a horrendous sound that shocked the entire house. While in the room, the doors wouldn't open for the girls. Andrea felt that it was a divine intervention that allowed the doors to open as the girls came flying down the stairs in fear. Finding out about the Ouija board and already believing that the farmhouse was haunted, as well as being warned by the Warrens, the girl's mother was furious. She went upstairs after the board and said later that the room smelled like rotten flesh. Cindy and Nancy's friend Katie was told to take the board and leave. She was never invited back to the farmhouse again after that night. According to Andrea, every person who was a resident of the property has had an experience. Though two residents, a couple who once owned the property, thought that the whole story was a hoax, they did admit to seeing strange things around the farmhouse. The wife firmly believed that Andrea, Hollywood, and the Warrens were all frauds, but stated that she did see strange orbs floating in the house. The husband also claimed to have seen strange fog floating in certain spots within the house too. She goes on to say that one previous owner, while renovating the house, ran screaming from the farmhouse, leaving his tools and equipment behind. After a seance with the Warrens, while After a seance that the Warrens performed, the crew said that they had equipment that was in the basement, which was all smashed to pieces. During the seance, Andrea's mother went into a trance and began to speak in strange languages as doors began to open and close. Soon, Andrea's mother was lifted off the table and flung across the room. She was knocked unconscious, and that infuriated Andrea's father, who got up and assaulted Ed Warren. He then proceeded to cursing the Warrens out and kicking them out after that. They never returned to the farmhouse after, and the family lived there for 7 years after the Warrens had visited the farmhouse.